And once again, good to have you along on Leading Edge. Good to have you there. I'm Jerry Edison. Thanks for being with us this week, even as our lawmakers in Columbus have had such a hard time coming up with constitutionally mandated redistricting. Um, they have had their hands slapped, let's face it, by the Ohio Supreme Court a couple of times, but still more interesting people are lining up to serve there. And hey, let's just hope maybe they can fix that mess down there. And I find my next guest to have a very compelling story, one that I wanted to share with you as we welcome in Joshua Williams, Toledo native, current Oregon resident, Republican candidate for the 40th Ohio House seat. Joshua, welcome in. What a story. Your dad died, I think you were 5 years old. That makes you the child of a single parent. Growing up in a low income setting, nevertheless, you were pretty darn good at school. So let's start there, because I know that ultimately your educational path would take you to and through law school. Wow, I covered a lot of ground there in about 15 seconds. But what's that drive to learn, Joshua? Was it just a natural part of your DNA? Was it your mother's urging? You've got it. Or could you have seen even back then that education was the best path to a better life?
I didn't realize how important education was when I was young. It came very natural to me. I didn't have to work very hard in high school or junior high or even grade school in order to be successful. So I didn't find that drive until I got to college.
And see, well, he went to Royce C. Start High School, and I was a Bowser guy when I was young. You know, that's a big rivalry back then. So glad we can mend fences here today, Joshua. You turn 18, you're still in high school over at Start, and your mom says, hey, I'm kind of done raising kids. Found you an apartment, but let's face it, you're trying to make ends meet. You're in high school. You actually had to drop out of Start High School because your choice was, working or getting that diploma. You would take a job, and I'm really condensing things there. I think when you were married, your wife very pregnant, on the job, you fell some 30 feet, suffered a devastating back injury, ended up
Yes.
disabled, laying in bed literally for years, took on some 200 pounds, began collecting disability, but finally found a back procedure that would give you some mobility. And with that, some light now in your life,
Yes.
the light at the end of the tunnel. And you decided to go to college. But here, I think this is interesting. The system itself almost stalled you in your tracks and kept you from chasing your dream.
Exactly, exactly. So since I was injured on the job, I was an injured worker, and I was receiving Ohio workers' compensation benefits for years. I laid in bed for 6 years, on and off. For 2 years consecutively, I was bedridden and barely could walk. And after four back surgeries, I finally got healthy enough to say, hey, I want to pursue college. And the system wasn't set up for that. If you enrolled in college, that proved you weren't disabled and your disability cut off. So it took a year of fighting the system for them to agree to allow me to use college as a form of vocational training and
The
pursue my
system,
career as.
Joshua, would have been glad to just keep paying you laying in a bed.
Oh, absolutely. Not only did they offer to keep paying me, they offered to settle the claim. So pay me a lump sum and lay in bed for the rest of your life.
Well, you
And
wouldn't hear of it. You had other dreams. You finally got
yes,
them to come around. You had added your GED. You entered the paralegal program at UT, earning first an associate's degree, then a bachelor's degree, and then, folks, I think was it scholarship to UT Law School? And you're
yes.
about, at this point, Joshua, so everybody know, you're about what, 30 years old when you enter law school?
I was 30 years old when I entered college.
When you entered
Um,
college.
yeah,
Okay,
I
so
was 30.
you're an atypical student.
Yeah, I was 30 years old as a freshman, and in 3 years, I was able to earn both my associates and my bachelor's with honors.
Wow. And then on to law school. Did you ever think about why? I mean, the system itself, and you had a little scrape with the law in which you were actually charged, and Joshua will point out charged before police had never talked to him. The
Oh,
charges would be dropped after Joshua submitted evidence proving his innocence. Was that behind your decision to follow law?
Uh, initially, no.
No.
So initially, I became very good at the workers' comp system, and my attorney, John Palafka, is the one that convinced me to pursue paralegal studies and become a paralegal. So I was going to school to be a workers' comp paralegal and a Social Security paralegal. And then the run-in with the law happened, and that changed my focus, changed my life, and that's what gave me the drive to not only go into the criminal defense field, but where really there are no paralegals in criminal defense. I was the first one at my firm, but it pushed me to go to college
And I want
or to law school. I mean, it pushed me to go to law school.
some will say, "Hey, Joe, you just brushed over that legal thing," and we're not going to relive it. Joshua Williams, by the way, is my guest, and he would like to serve in the Ohio House. He's running as a Republican in the 40th Ohio House District, whatever configuration that turns out to be. We're pretty sure that being in Oregon, where he lives, he's going to be in that district. In short, see if I have this right, you were a youth sports coach, and without reliving all the details, you say while you were doing something that your league asked you to do and just retrieving some equipment from a storage facility, somebody else accused you of stealing that equipment, and it was up to you, frankly, to provide evidence. The charges were eventually dropped.
Yes.
And I want to put that on the record. Anything you'd like to add there?
I think that was a great recap.
Um, um, now politics. Wow. With everything you've been through, and life's pretty good. By the way, he is a lawyer. You want to put a plug in for your law firm?
Sure. Groth and Associates in downtown Toledo. You can reach us at 419-930-3030.
Now that's a plug. And you and Stefan had some history.
Yeah, he was actually my criminal defense attorney, and this was the firm that represented me during my criminal case, and then hired me as a paralegal, and literally pushed me to go to law school, and were the most supportive people in my life at the time, really making it where I could succeed and follow my dreams.
And tell my viewers, if you will, Joshua, the judge in your case, who you would later cross paths with in the law school at the University of Toledo, where he would do some instructing in trial law, I believe, is
Myron Duhart, who presided over my case, was one of my law school professors in trial practice, where I took top honors in his class. And then Judge Duhart was kind enough to actually swear me in as an attorney when I passed the bar.
You run as a Republican, yet many would say Republicans don't necessarily champion criminal justice reform, and that's a big issue for you. They're often seen as stalling or blocking police reforms, and you were a victim of really police improper actions. But yet in other ways, Joshua, pro-life, pro-Second Amendment, school choice, you say you've long aligned with Republican values.
Yes, and I actually believe that the Republican Party is the only party championing criminal justice reform. We saw it across all 50 states. We've seen it here in Ohio recently, where the efforts to change the bail system, the efforts to modify the criminal justice system and allow you to get your record sealed earlier and with more opportunities than before. So the Republican Party has actually been a great advocate for criminal justice reform across the United States.
The criminal justice system historically in America has not treated Black males fairly. Is that a correct statement?
That is very correct.
Yeah. All you have to do is look at the makeup of our criminal justice system, folks. Top issues for you when you win this thing and get to Columbus.
First, criminal justice reform. Two, protecting the lives of unborn children. It's a very important topic to me. One, I also want to bring funding back to Northwest Ohio to be able to cut down on the gun violence rate we see here in Toledo, especially amongst our youth. My history with youth coaching, I realize how we can affect our youth with positive programs, and that always takes funding.
You know, following the Dayton shooting, the governor of Ohio, a Republican, Mike DeWine, as well as the mayor of Dayton, where the shooting occurred, Nan Wheatley, who wants to be the governor, both called for some, and he submitted some what he called common sense gun reforms, and they didn't see the light of day in that legislature. Are there any forms of gun reforms, background checks, the red flag laws, when somebody you know of and you love them and they're just in a bad place and they're armed and they're saying bad things, where you can report them? Is there anything that you could support? Because many of your colleagues down there will support none of it.
So I support general background checks that they're in the current format that we have. I don't support background checks for private sales between two consenting individuals. I do support tougher sentencing on gun-related crimes, especially when guns are used in crimes and shootings. When it comes to the red flag laws, I don't support them in their current structure, where essentially your Second Amendment is removed from you prior to you ever having your day in court.
A day in court
So
argument. Okay.
yeah, if there was a structure where a person had an opportunity to go and confront those saying that they were unstable and have the access to an attorney to defend against those accusations, then you may see me
All
supporting
right.
some version of it.
All right. You're unchallenged in the primary, right?
Correct.
All right. So we got a little bit into issues there, but I wanted this mostly just background biographical stuff for our viewers. I just wanted you to know this young man because he is going to be on the ballot. Joshua Williams. He's running as a Republican, the 40th House seat. We'll get to the primary, and believe me, before November, we'll get back on and get into the deep weeds of some issues. Okay.
I appreciate it.
All right. Good to meet you. And thanks for rolling up your sleeves and getting involved. We need people involved in the system. And I'll be right back.